This almost never happens. Of all the weeks that we've played, I think we've been able to cast one Terran versus Protoss. So even though Jabroni is on the opposing team, I'm going to have to cheer for him. And speaking of this legendary creature, spawning in the... Whoa. My hotkey's not working. Awesome. Spawning in the bottom left position with the blue eyeshadow, playing for the University of Texas Arlington, we have... Oh, failed. areaJibroni.
Yeah. And spawning up in the top right-hand position, representing Purdue University, we have our red Protoss player spawning in, of course, red. What else? Mokomi.
Oh, so spiffy. So, from the Protoss perspective, what do you think we're going to see out of Mokomi this game?
You know, I wouldn't be too surprised if he was either... Well, usually in Protoss versus Terran, you generally want to go down either one of two tech paths. You want to go down the Templar tech, or you want to go down the robotics tech path. And on this map in particular, just in terms of general openings, we're likely to see a much more expansion-driven play style. You usually want to go for something like a one-gate expand on this map, just because it's so easy to hold the natural with that ramp right there to force field off, or at least for the Protoss player. Now, what do you think the Terran player might have in mind in this game?
Again, with Shakur's Plateau, I do not think he's going to do any highly aggressive plays like a 2-Rax, and we can already see that Jabroni is walling off at the front and has not gotten a gas even though he's at 15 supply, which would imply to me that he is doing a gasless expansion. So he should be getting his command center around the 330 mark if his timings are well down.
Yeah, and Mokomi, of course, scouting that there was no gas. That's going to be a big tell to say, look, there's either going to be a huge marine pressure incoming, or it's going to be that gasless expand that you were talking about. And Mokomi is probably going to gear up to probably actually take his own expansion in just a little bit after his cybernetics core probably finishes up.
He has started it. The cybernetics core is about 50% completed now, so we'll see very shortly if Mokomi wants to do any harassment, very aggressive play, or just to take that expansion, which we've talked about before. His probe was chased out before he did get vision of that command center being thrown down. I'm just showing everyone else that. So let's see what decision Mokomi actually comes to. It looks like he's starting up his first Stalker and Cybernetics Core, but this probe seems to be going down to plant this Nexus.
Yeah, and he is saving up that money. We can see he's about 350 minerals now, and just waiting to plant down that Nexus. Looks like he's actually queuing up another Stalker.
Yes, he queued up his second Stalker.
Yeah, so he has another Stalker on the way. So that makes me think that he's going to put on a little bit of aggression. We can even see that he does have that Xel'Naga watchtower with that probe, so he can maybe get out a little bit of vision, see if there are any Marines coming out. Because I don't think he's seen that expansion yet, so he wants to be extra careful to make sure that those massive Marine numbers are not coming out from that gasless build.
Oh, and Jabroni's actually doing one of the strategies I used for a long time is after a gasless expansion to get 3 additional barracks, still delaying this gas. So we're going to see a very heavy Marine opening. This build is also very effective versus Void Ray openings, which Mokomi has used in PvTs in previous CSL matches.
There was a money SCV walking straight into Mokomi's base, and it sees everything.
Yep,
and I do mean everything.
He knew he knows that the Nexus went down. He saw the 2 additional gateways, and he knows that no units are in his base. So he should have a good idea that either some Zealots or Stalkers are out on the field.
Yeah, and he's probably going to be
from the Protoss perspective. If you just got scouted like that, would you change your game plan at all, or would you just continue on with what you were going with?
You know, I would probably say it's safer to continue on with what I'm going with. as of right now, tech paths such as I was talking about the Templar tech versus the robotics tech, that kind of stuff has not been revealed yet. And, the Terran usually wants to respond by getting either Ghosts or Vikings, depending on which one the Protoss goes for.
Oh, we lost one
we
Stalker. Some of these Marines were moving out and was able to pick off a Stalker, and the Stalker is seeing all these Marines, so Mokomi should know that there are a few barracks out on the field.
Yeah, and that Stalker is going to be able to get some good damage on those Marines. For those who don't know, a Stalker actually has 1 extra range over a Marine, so it has 6 range, and it moves a little bit faster. So that means that if you have really solid control, as both of these players definitely do, you can kind of jump your Stalker around and try and pick off some little bits of damage on those Marines, and then your shields will just come back and recharge.
Oh, but this is a big, scary force that are moving around. 15 Marines. This is enough to do some damage as it's hitting before, or it should hit before the 8-minute mark, and that's when Protoss, if they're teching up, that's when they start having their first couple of mortals, but before Colossus pumps out. So if Mokomi has enough sentries to hold this off, which we'll look at the front. He does have 4, but it will take 2 force fields to wall this off completely. So Mokomi has to be paying big attention to this. But it looks like these Marines will not commit. They may try to... Oh, no, they turn around. But it looks like these 3 Stalkers are enough to chase them out.
These Stalkers are actually going to do a huge amount of damage as these Marines try and walk back. And actually, no, it looks like the Stalkers are going to head back. They're going to try and play it safe. Maybe Mokomi doesn't want to take the chance of losing these 3 Stalkers, as that's actually a pretty big loss if you end up losing those this early into the game.
Yeah, and Jibroni is actually making a second bunker after being thrown back. The stim is about halfway done, so he is getting stim before combat shield, and is even getting concussive shells as he's making 2 Marauders at a time and 4 Marines. He's going for getting ready to do a big push, and this reactor on the factory is going to enable him to get very fast drop shifts to do this play. So we are going to see a very strong 2-base timing, and Mokomi is actually getting ready to take a third. Usually he will
it looks
drop
like at the same time.
Yeah,
at the exact same time as Mokomi's trying to take a third. Looks like Jibroni is also dropping down his 3rd command center, and this observer over in Jibroni's base does spot that. So Mokomi's going to feel a little bit safer about taking that 3rd, as he does end up dropping that down and planting that other pylon right next to it to make sure that he can reinforce and defend it as he needs to.
Exactly.
And I really like this play from Mokomi. He actually has 2 observers. So one he's positioning right outside of Jibroni's front so that he can spot to see when Jibroni does decide to move out. And the other one is inside Jibroni's base. And, the great thing I like about this is that a lot of Terrans will see the observer moving out, and they'll scan and kill off the observer. And once you lose your observer, you kind of are in the dark for a little while. So Mokomi is kind of prepared in advance and said, hey, I'm just going to make 2 observers because there's 2 places on the map I want to look at.
And we even have a 3rd observer that just came out, so he is going to even spend a little more time. And Mokomi does spot this giant force with 2 dropships, stim, and +1 should finish before it hits. So this is a very scary army in which force fields are very needed to hold this off.
Oh, this is actually going to be very down to the micro on if Mokomi can hold this. And he's actually moved down his ramp, and I'm not sure how much I agree with that with this Zealot Sentry Force. His Stalkers are not even actually there to really help out. Ooh, the Stalker's taking a little bit of damage from the Marauders on the high ground. Oh, actually losing 2 of them.
And then they come running off. Force fields are late. A big chunk of the army is sectioned off, and those Zealots are getting to work, but I don't know if Mokomi has enough. Only sentries remain, and now 2 sentries. 1 sentry was only dropped. Now we're going to start elevatoring up into the main base and start splitting up this Protoss army, which seems very fragile right now.
Oh, that's such a beautiful play from Jibroni. Jibroni, knowing that Mokomi was dependent on using force fields to delay this push, so he instead just drops straight into the main, forces Mokomi to split up his units. Mokomi desperately running out of force fields. Now the main army can move up. There's no more force fields left. There's only 1 sentry with 1 force field left, and the probes are coming out. The probes all getting massacred as these Marines and Marauders just do way too much damage. They stim once again and clean up the entire army of Mokomi, and Mokomi is in big trouble, Curtis.
Yeah, and during all of this, Mokomi's minerals have just been skyrocketing up. It seems like he was trying something and just got hit before he was ready for it, and I mean that's actually going to cause Game 1 in favor of University of Arlington.